Welcome to my ranking of the Dirty Harry movies. I imagine that this is one of my more niche rankings videos. Does anybody under the age of 35 actually know what this series is or what it's about? Even I'm not the biggest fan of it. I did most of my Dirty Harry watching when I was in my 20s. They were some of the earliest DVDs I ever bought. I mean, these days I've got probably 400 DVDs and Blu-rays, which sounds a lot, but given the fact that I've been collecting for almost 20 years, I don't think it makes me the most prolific of collectors. I mean, I've given loads away at various points, it has to be said, and sold loads. So the actual amount that I've bought in that whole time could well be double actually what I've got. But there was a time in my early 20s when I might have only owned about 30 DVDs, and 5 of them were Dirty Harry films because they always seemed to be in the shops at one point. They were always very cheap. So I bought them, watched them, got to know them quite a bit, and today I'm going to give you my ranking. I presume if you're watching this video, you do know what this series is about, but if you don't, I'll quickly tell you that this is a series of 5 films made between 1971 and 1988. In every single one of them, Clint Eastwood plays the same character, Harry Callahan, albeit they are very different stories. He's a cop who goes around San Francisco dishing out his own very special brand of justice. They're great fun, these movies. And here is my ranking. And as always, we will start with the one that I like the least. Now, I'm a little bit surprised that this one has come last for a few reasons. Firstly, this is the only one that Clint Eastwood directed himself. We all know Clint Eastwood is a really good director, so I'm just going to put this down to a coincidence. Less of a coincidence, I suspect, in my gut, is the fact that Sondra Locke is in this film as the main female lead. She was Clint Eastwood's real-life partner for the longest time, and they did loads of movies together, but I sort of wonder whether this was one film too far for them. I mean, they were adorable as a couple in The Outlaw, Josie Wales. They were very funny as a couple in The Gauntlet, but their chemistry is sort of lacking in this film a little bit. I just wonder whether they'd run out of different ways that they could play off each other. I mean, to be fair on Sondra Locke's character, she's in a very dark place in this film. She's basically gang raped at the start, and then she's going around shooting guys in the balls and things, but that's part of the problem with this movie a little bit for me. I'm not really into the rape revenge thing. Even when I'm watching horror films, that's not a subgenre that I will go to very often. I mean, this isn't a terrible film. I'm not trying to give off a completely bad impression of it. You still get to watch Eastwood taking down loads of guys, and he fires off his usual quips. In fact, this one has one of the most famous Clint Eastwood lines of all when he says, "Go ahead, punk, make my day." Yeah, that is in this movie. But if you want one more reason as to why this one has come bottom, it's the fact that it's not set in San Francisco. For me, Harry Callahan and San Francisco go hand in hand, and this is the one movie in the series where he goes somewhere else. He goes to this little seaside town with a fairground in it. It's a bit like taking Batman out of Gotham and forcing him to fight criminals in the cornfields of Nebraska. It's just not quite the same somehow. So today, I'm afraid, sudden impact makes little impact. So next up, we've got the final film in the series, which was released in 1988. It was also the first one that I ever saw. This was always on TV in the UK throughout the 90s. In fact, looking back, I'm sure they only showed this one literally every single year. It's quite annoying looking back, actually, but I developed a liking of this film just because it was on TV so much. I'm not even sure that I would have been aware back then that there were other films with the same character in. I probably just presumed that this was a one-off detective story starring Clint Eastwood. It's quite funny. But there's so much to enjoy in this film. There's an amazing car chase with this remote-controlled car that is also a bomb. It's absolutely brilliant. And the ending, when Callahan takes down the bad guy with a harpoon gun, is just brilliant. I swear, if that takedown had been on the Scorpio killer from Dirty Harry, it would be considered iconic. But because it's in the Deadpool, maybe people just don't remember it as much or consider it as highly. There's also loads of funny things in this film. Liam Neeson plays a film director and he's just the most hilarious character. Jim Carrey plays a rock star. He's funny, as short-lived as his part in the film is. And there's also this great scene that I always remember where Eastwood and his new partner is this little Chinese guy. He's only about 35, whereas Eastwood's about 60. And they're jogging along, and eventually Callahan's partner just doubles over. He's like, I can't take any more. And meanwhile, Callahan, about 60 years old, is still going. Like, he could just go on forever. So yeah, the Deadpool is number 4 out of 5 for me. At number 3, we've got the Enforcer. I kind of feel like I could have put the Deadpool above this one because I think there are more things I could criticize about the Enforcer than the Deadpool, but I just enjoy the Enforcer more somehow, despite its problems. But this is the first time in the series that it doesn't really feel like they've got a great story to work with. The two films before this one, Dirty Harry and Magnum Force, they had these amazing stories. I mean, the films basically just told themselves almost, but this time around, it's kind of like the writer, producer, whoever probably had a blank notepad and were like, how do we bring Callahan back again? We've got nothing. And then they've come up with this stuff about amateur militia, and it's okay, I guess, but it's hardly the story of Magnum Force, is it? Also, this film does that cheesy thing where they basically go, ooh, this is the third time around. I know, just to shake things up a bit, let's give Callahan a female partner. They do the exact same thing in the Lethal Weapon series in the third movie. They pair Riggs up with this female cop and they put those two in a relationship as well. Now, what I will say is that Callahan and whoever he's working with here, it's one of those girls from Cagney and Lacey, I think, they are less annoying than Riggs and whoever Rene Russo was playing in Lethal Weapon 3, but yeah, it's a little bit cheesy. Although Callahan gets a great line towards the start of this film where the mayor or the police chief or whoever tells him he's got this new partner and he says, any questions? And Callahan just goes, yeah, how fast does she run the 100? Brilliant. There's some great action sequences in this film. One of them, about halfway through, Callahan's chasing somebody on foot in this building and they're dropping through windows and going on the roof and stuff. It goes on for a while, but I absolutely love that chase. I'm not sure kids these days could be entertained by that. You know, you've got all these Fast and the Furious films these days, cars getting shot into space and stuff, but I don't know what it says about me, but I would rather watch Callahan chase somebody on foot than watching a car getting propelled into space or a car jumping over a submarine. I still like some of the Fast and the Furious movies, but anyway, moving on. There's also a good finale in The Enforcer with Callahan going to Alcatraz and taking out all the bad guys, which would be a better sequence, I think, if the bad guys weren't such buffoons in this movie. But it's still such an amazing piece of entertainment that I've still got it at number 3. There are superior films in this series which are yet to come in this ranking, but there are also, as we've already seen, 2 films that The Enforcer leaves in its wake. So around about now, it probably just feels like I'm talking about these films in the exact reverse order that they were released, but that's just the way that the chips have landed today. I probably sound around about now like that annoying guy who's always like, well, the original film's the best, the second film's the second best, all the sequels suck. First of all, I don't actually know who talks like that. Secondly, I did put the Deadpool above Sudden Impact, so I haven't completely put them in reverse order. And to be fair, between Dirty Harry and Magnum Force, it was really tight. I had to think about that for several minutes. I'll tell you in a minute why I ultimately just went for Dirty Harry, but Magnum Force is an amazing film. No matter where in any ranking it places, it's just the most fascinating tale of police corruption. You've got these vigilante cops on one side, normal cops on the other side, and then you've got Callahan in the middle with his dubious ways of getting things done, and he has to sort of figure his part in all this out and where he ultimately stands. And eventually, of course, he comes down on the side of good, but it's a cracking cracking journey to get there. And the finale of this film, where he takes all these corrupt cops out on this boat, is just so well done because it feels like a realistic way of taking them out. You don't get that typical Hollywood ending where Callahan might be dangling with some guy on the side of the boat and then he'll come out with some quip like, go join your buddies in hell, and then drops them or something. You know, there's none of that crap. It's just a nice way to end the movie, and if you absolutely want a more Hollywoodized way of finishing things off, you do get that extra bit with the police captain who turns up and Callahan tricks him into driving away with the bomb. That's really good, to be fair. But on the whole, Magnum Force is a terrific film. And I'll tell you a funny thing. When I was about 6 or 7, I swear I came downstairs one night when I should have been in bed. I only came down to like ask for a drink or something innocuous. And my dad was watching Magnum Force on the TV, and it was just at the point where one of the characters is like machine gunning down all these people in a swimming pool, and really graphic bullet holes and stuff. And I was really freaked at the time. Actually, I was like, "Whoa!" And I got a bit of a telling off for just barging in the living room. But yeah, when I got to adulthood and I watched the movie, it didn't seem as violent, obviously. But anyway, Magnum Force is my number 2. Yeah, number 1, I've got the original and best. Not best by an awful lot, but I am satisfied in my choice. This is just the most amazingly simplistic story of cop versus psycho. I think that might just be why I've given it the edge over Magnum Force, just in terms of how simple it is, and you really feel the adrenaline when Callahan finally takes down this guy outside that cement factory or whatever it is. But my favourite sequence in the movie actually is much earlier than that, when Callahan is being sent all over town to answer the phone in several different locations. Scorpio's sort of playing him like a puppet sort of thing, and I think Callahan has to get a train in the middle of all this. And finally, when he catches up to Scorpio, the guy's got this really scary terrorist mask on, and Callahan's partner ends up taking a bullet. It's just great stuff. The only part of the film I don't like is this little 5 or 10 minute part where Scorpio's trying to frame Callahan. That bit just felt a bit like padding, but for the most part, this is an absolutely classic movie. It is my number 1. Do let me know in the comments how you would rank the Dirty Harry films. And I will finish today with my favourite quote from the entire franchise. It is from the original film, fittingly. So it's a scene that takes place in the mayor's office, I think, and he says something to Callahan like, "How did you even know that this guy had intent to attack that woman?" And Callahan just says, "Well, when I see a woman being chased by a naked guy with a butcher's knife and a hard-on, I kind of figure he isn't out collecting for the Red Cross." See you next time.